All right. So now we have, last week we learned, so now we're talking about the couples. There's what the zugot, couples. The Jews in Israel were ruled by pairs, by a couple. One was like called the Nasi, he was like the leader, and the other one was called the head of the Beit Din. And this comes down from, it started, the first of them was Shmaya and Abatalion. You remember learning that, Shmaya, Abatalion? And then, no, this is not right. This is not right. I'm sorry. I made a very big mistake. This is not so. The first one came from Shimon HaTzadik. After him came Antigonus Isocho. And after that, the first couple was Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Yochanan. Remember? We learned about them. They said you should open up your house to the wise men and they'll open up to the poor people. And then after that came Yeshua ben Prachia and Nitai Arbeli. And they said you should make yourself a rabbi and get even buy yourself a friend and keep away from bad neighbors. Okay, now we have the third pair. And that is Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shetach. Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shetach. Shetach. But this was a very difficult time in Judaism. I mean, all the times were pretty difficult, but this is really difficult. There was a king called Yanai Melech. And he was married to the sister of Shimon ben Shetach. She was called Shlomit. And Yanai Melech killed all of the wise men. He killed all of the wise men. He was influenced also by the Tzedukim, the Sadducees. So he killed all of the holy wise men, which now are called degradingly, they're called the Pharisees. But really the fact is they were really holy people. And the reason they're called degradingly is because they interpreted the Torah properly, and there came along you know who, and translated, interpreted the Torah in a twisted, false way, and in order to perpetuate his lies, so he hated all the rabbis. Okay, but this is before this. This is about 130 years before that guy came along. We're talking about JC, right? The Nazarite. Oh. So this is about 130 something years before that. And this is the time there was the king Yanai. He kills all the wise men. Shimon ben Shetach, he hid away, and Yehuda ben Tabai ran away. He ran away to. So eventually, the Yanai Melech, he dies. That was his whole story. So she brings him back, Shimon ben Shetach. And when Shimon ben Shetach, he becomes the head of the Sanhedrin. And he, by all sorts of, and all the people in the Sanhedrin, they're all these crooked Sadducees. What are the Sadducees? The Tzedukim. The Tzedukim, they were really the forerunners of Christianity. The Tzedukim, they said that every man can make up his own explanation of the Torah. And they somehow or other agreed on their explanation of the Torah. I don't know how they agreed on whatever it is. There was the Tzedukim and the Beitusim. Remember? They said that they were the pupils. They came from the pupils of Antigonus Isocho. Antigonus Isocho. Remember, we learned he received from Shimon HaTzadik. And Antigonus Isocho said, "Don't serve God for reward, and don't think about the rewards." And Tzadok, they said, "Oh, there's no rewards, huh?" So if so, everybody does what they want. So that's what. So now they're making this big war against them, and Shimon ben Shetach cleverly gets rid of all these tzedukim from the Sanhedrin. So now we're talking about laws about judgment, how to make judgment, and he calls Yehuda ben Tabai back from exile, and they become the leaders of the Jewish people. So let's see, what did Yehuda ben Tabai say? He said, "Al ta'az atzmecha ke'orche adayanim." if you are a judge, don't act like a lawyer. Don't start giving advice to one side or the other. Don't be, but even if you see that one side is right and the other side is wrong, nevertheless, a judge should not get involved in one side or the other of the judgment. He has to be totally impartial. Because you, Balidin, and when the litigants are standing before you, you should treat them both, before you make the decision, you should treat them both as though that they are guilty. They're guilty. In other words, you're not judging, saying this guy is innocent. I can see from his face, I know he is innocent. No, every case has to be judged from the beginning. If there's a suspicion, you have to take all suspicion into account and say, it could be that both this guy is guilty, maybe this guy is guilty. Let's hear the claims. That's before you make the judgment. But after you do make the judgment and they leave you, then they should be, both of them, in your eyes like tzaddikim. What does it mean? You shouldn't say, why, that dirty rat, he stole all that money. You should say, listen, maybe he was in a tight situation. Maybe he meant a temporary insanity. You already decided he's guilty and he already has to pay. So after he has decided that he's guilty and he receives his punishment, so let's say that's it, now he's clean. And probably what he did, the sin that he did it unintentionally, he did it from mitigating circumstances, whatever. Guilty he is, and you have to pay. But don't treat him as though he's permanently evil. Because when he receives on himself the judgment, then say that now he's clean. And this is a general principle, generally in Torah, that a person is judged according to his deeds. A person is judged according to his deeds. And everyone has to be assumed, unless he's suspected of something. Everyone has to be assumed that they are good. God creates everybody. Everybody is basically, essentially good. And if someone is suspected of something, that he did something wrong, then you have to make a judgment. You can't say, oh, it's probably wrong, he's innocent. No. If he's suspected of something, then you say, I have to check this out. It could be that the suspicions are true. So if there's a trial in front of you, you're a judge, so you have to treat both of them as though maybe they're lying. Maybe he really is he's telling a lie, or maybe the other guy is telling a lie. Maybe he really is a thief. Maybe he's not a thief. Right? But you have to look at him in a scrutinizing eye, and don't say he's probably innocent, so I won't look at it closely. But that's before the judgment is made. But after the judgment is made, don't hold a grudge against the person. Don't say this person is permanently blemished because he has done something wrong. You should be sorry. Even though the fact is that in Judaism, if a person is lied and you catch him lying, then there's a law that the person is called a machzik shakran, that his testimony, he can't be a witness anymore because his testimony is assumed to be false until he can somehow or other prove differently. And so that is, but and except for these cases, in other words, you should always try to judge a person, like we said before, the kaf sechut, for the side of good. Always judge a person, unless it says clearly, according to the Torah, that he's not. And in that case, you have to judge him oppositely. But when he does take the judgment, so then you have to assume that hopefully he's not a bad person. He's just a person that maybe in this one area he's weak or whatever. Look at people favorably, but on the other hand, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool and don't be fooled. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said that my father taught me never to lie to anyone, never to lie in anyone, never to, and no one should, how did he say? Oh, yeah, I forgot it. He said that I should never lie to anyone and that no one should ever lie to me. There's another one in the middle. I should never fool, I should never fool myself. I should never fool anyone else. And I should never have let anyone else fool me. He said, there's a lot of people that think that they're fooling me, but the fact of the matter is that they're not fooling me. In other words, I treat them to the positive side, but on the other end, don't be a fool. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Be with us tomorrow. We'll continue learning about the laws of, of not cheating one another. Have a good day with Mashiach now.